Throughout all the investigations into the January 6th attack on Capitol Hill, Trump's cronies have used nearly every excuse in the book to avoid talking to investigators, from claiming executive privilege to pleading the Fifth to straight up just ignoring the subpoenas. But today, former Vice President Mike Pence is adding another, perhaps more bizarre excuse to the list. NBC News is reporting that Pence is planning on challenging a subpoena from special counsel Jack Smith by invoking the speech or debate clause that protects legislators from outside scrutiny. You might be asking yourself, how does that apply to a former Vice President of the United States? Well, apparently, Pence will argue that he was acting in his role as president of the Senate during the joint session of Congress on January 6th. 2021. It remains unclear how that would prevent him from testifying about other conversations at or around the White House before the 6th. But perhaps the larger question is why? This is the same Mike Pence who the insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol were chanting about hanging, whose Secret Service rushed off the Senate floor to hide. The same Mike Pence that Trump tweeted didn't have the courage to do what should have been done as the Capitol was being swarmed by a violent, frothing mob. Why wouldn't he want to cooperate? Joining me now is Paul Butler, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst, and Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist and former spokesperson for the House Oversight Committee. I do want to start with you, Paul. Speech and debate clause. I think that makes sense.
Speech and debate clause says that members of Congress cannot be questioned in other places about legislative activities. On January 6th, Vice President Pence was the Vice President of the United States. He was not a member of Congress. His argument is because the Vice President does things like preside over the Senate, vote if there's a tie, he's kind of, sort of a member of Congress. He's also being really disingenuous, Joy, because he fought the January 6th Commission by saying that as a member of the executive department, he shouldn't be compelled to testify by Congress. Now he's invoking separations of power to say, well, I'm a member of Congress, and therefore the executive shouldn't make me testify.
Yeah, well, he's also headed to Iowa tomorrow. I mean, isn't this? I mean, I have seen folks on air. I might have seen you say this on our air. Mike Pence needs to fight this because he's running for president. Okay, and he needs to be able to tell the Trump base, no, I was dragged kicking and screaming into testifying against Trump. I love Trump. Yeah, he tried to get me hung, but that's okay. I forgive him. I'm a Christian, right? He's doing this. He's fighting it for political reasons.
Yeah, I mean, this is someone who is so desperate to get the votes of the people who wanted to hang him that he's willing to look the other way and do everything he can to avoid making sure that the people who are actually responsible for sending a dangerous, violent mob after him are able to escape accountability, to avoid justice. And it just says everything you need to know about Mike Pence. I mean, this is a guy who's Vice President of the United States. You would think that your first and foremost priority is to uphold democracy, to defend democracy. It shouldn't take a subpoena to get you to talk about what happened. It should take just your own conscience. You should volunteer to tell anyone and everyone about what happened, who was behind it, what you heard, and to make sure that they can never hold power again. And he's doing the exact opposite. He's a coward.
He also wrote a book. He appeared in documentaries. We have VO of one we could play if we wanted. We're not going to play the soundbite right now. I think there's VO of it. He has written articles. He has already talked about what happened on January 6th. How can he then shield himself behind anything? Speech and debate clause, executive privilege. He can't shield himself. He's already talked about it.
A judge is not likely to let him. You don't get to write a book about January 6th and then go on Fox News to hawk it and then say, well, I can't talk about it to the grand jury because it's privilege. There's also a question about, even if a judge agrees that he's a member of Congress, whether this is legitimate legislative activity. Jack Smith wants to know about his one-on-one conversations with Trump about trying to overturn the democracy. Did Trump admit to Pence that he knew he lost, that they lost, but he didn't care? That's not legitimate legislative activity.